Welcome to the podcast. It's the magical holidays. Time for Joe watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Why, you might ask? Because it sounds like a crazy task to be watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. It'll be struggle, no I won't lie. By the halfway point I will lose my mind, but with your support I'm gonna be fine. So let's have a blast on this Christmas time. Join me now and let's find out about today's Christmas movie. Was it good or bad? Happy or sad? Is there another dead mom and dad? Let's get to it with no delay. It's your old pal Joe and he's happy to say welcome to Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days.
How's it going, everybody? It's me, it's your old pal Joe, and welcome to episode 51 of Joe Watches 60 Christmas Movies in 60 Days. Before we talk about today's movie, of course, we must talk about my good friends over at Third Eye Comics. Third Eye Comics, your headquarters for comics, gaming, music, movies, snacks, and more. They have a lockdown on all kinds of things to get you in the holiday spirit, or just to put a smile on your face if you're looking for something to fill that void within you. Third Eye Comics, if you can't get to one of their many locations in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, well, my friends, you can always go to shop.thirdeyecomics.com and pick out whatever you want, and it's on me as long as you're paying. That's shop.thirdeyecomics.com. Support them because they are supporting me. Today's movie is A Frosty Affair. We open with snowy woods and mountains and homes. We land on the town of Sorensen Lake. It's covered in snow. We jump to a little kid's school play. Our main character, Kate, watches from the side of the stage. She's the stage manager. Afterwards, she hugs each kid as they leave. They say how much they'll miss her. Oh, I forgot which movie this was. This movie's a piece of shit. Sorry, everybody. This movie's dumb. Anyway, cut to her taking time from a going away party to talk to her fiancé over a video call. She really misses him and can't wait to see him soon. We learn that this party is being thrown in her honor because she's leaving the school, because she's going to move to live with her boyfriend, because they're going to get married within the week. Her wedding is exactly 1 week later. Then we join the party for her, where the vice principal hits on her and everyone jokes about it and says at least he's getting better about not doing it as grossly, I guess. And it made me feel very uncomfortable. Next, the principal gives a speech in honor of our main character, what's her name? Kate, and says how much she's done for the school and how much they'll miss her, and they hope that she can come back sometime. All of this happens while a snowstorm rages outside. The next morning, Kate finds herself literally snowed in with only a small opening at the top of her doorway available. Still, she shoves all of her luggage through that hole and slides out. Unfortunately, her car won't start. Cut to her trudging away on foot with her luggage. Eventually, she arrives at a very tiny one-shack airport. It's the whole airport and the runway is covered in snow. A guy drives up on his snowmobile and completely ignores her. He finds a way inside the locked shack and looks around. She asks if he's the pilot. He says, "Do I look like a pilot?" She says, "Well, where are the pilots?" And he goes, "Do you see a runway? It's under 3 feet of snow." She says she has a ticket to leave today. He says, "I do too, but it doesn't look like any planes will be taking off today." He leaves on his snowmobile. In a moment of frustration, Kate throws something after him. I don't know if it's a snow globe, if it's a shoe, or whatever it is. She throws something after him, hitting him in the head, which causes him to fall off of his snowmobile. She then apologizes and says she just needs to get to Snowy Pines. He says, "I mind my own business, lady. I don't want to know what you need." She figures out that he must be heading somewhere on his snowmobile and asks if he can take her. She says, "I'll even pay you." So she figures out that he's going to the same place she is because he was going to be at the airport, the same airport for the same flight as her. He says he doesn't need the extra baggage and drives away. Cut to Kate dragging her luggage up to a home she finds. She knows a kid there. She asks if the snowmobile out front might be for sale. He shrugs his shoulders. This is when we start getting really dumb. All right, so the general gist of this is she needs to find a way to make her way home for her wedding. And the lack of a flight because of the snowstorm has made that impossible. Okay? So she's going to travel. And guess what? She's going to travel with this mysterious stranger. We'll learn more about him in a bit. The other thing that this movie does, though, is it keeps jumping over to the home life, where her fiancé and family are waiting for her to arrive. And that entire storyline is clown bullshit. It's like the goofiest sort of dumb humor that you can find in a movie. And the rest of the movie doesn't really match it, which makes it even more outlandish and more annoying. So we cut to a church where her family is preparing for things, and her sister is there being lazy and obnoxious. Her dad wants to hang a giant wedding banner of some sort in front of a mantle of Jesus. And the sister says, and I quote, "Pastor Dude told me we can't stick anything on that." The fiance is also there, and he went to go pick Kate up at the airport, but then he walks in and says Kate's not there. She's going to be a little late because of a snowstorm. Cut to Kate driving the snowmobile she apparently bought from that little kid. This is not a very good snowmobile, but it's a snowmobile nonetheless. Then we cut to the guy on the snowmobile packing things at home. He's putting things on the snowmobile. I looked up his name on IMDb. The character's name is Redford. He is her eventual love interest. Spoiler. He calls and tells someone on the phone the bad news about his flight. He says it'll be about a 3-day trek on his snowmobile, and he probably won't have cell reception for most of it, but he'll get home or get there when he can. Then Kate rolls up on her snowmobile. How did she find him? No fucking clue. The movie will never explain it to us. Anyway, she asks if she can at least follow him. She cannot. She gives him a hard time about not helping. He pops into his snowmobile and just drives away. She hurries behind him on hers. Her snowmobile, though, is a ripcord's type of starter, like you might start a lawnmower by pulling a ripcord. So she pulls the ripcord, and it rips completely out of the snowmobile, and she shrugs her shoulders and throws it aside. And I got really mad at the character and the movie then, because this makes it seem like she's a complete fucking idiot. Because at some point she's going to have to turn off that snowmobile because it's going to need gas, or she's going to be done driving for the day. How is she going to start it then? Nah, I'll just be funny and throw it aside. Like, what's this even do? Eventually, Redford stops to check a map and then starts back on his journey. We see Kate slowly following behind. Eventually he comes across a fallen tree. He can navigate around it with his snowmobile, but then he thinks about Kate and moves it out of the way. He's back on his journey with Kate a good distance behind. Then he does a big snow jump over a hill. Like he didn't see the jump coming, but suddenly he's in the air and he lands safely, blah, blah, blah. But then Kate comes to the same hill and she stops and he's like, "Don't do it. Don't make this jump. Don't turn around, go home." And she says, "Nope, I'm going to do it." So then she does the same jump in her paltry snowmobile, and wouldn't you know it, there's a big crash and she falls off. It's treated very dramatic, but also like a comedy. He goes over to check on her and starts performing chest compressions as if she is dead. And then she thinks he's trying to cop a feel. They start bickering, then calm down. Eventually she apologizes for trying to follow him. Can't he just give her a ride? She'll even pay him. Eventually he gives in. 2 rules. She can only bring 1 luggage bag and no talking. Back to her family, we get some big overacting with everyone acting like clowns. Basically her fiance tells her dad, who's paying for the wedding, that she'll be there in 3 days, and the dad is all, "This is such an expensive wedding," and I don't care about any of that. Back to our traveling duo. They arrive in an open cabin and light a lantern. Kate asks whose place this is. He has no idea. He asks her to start a fire while he goes and gets some firewood. She acts like she knows how to start a fire, but doesn't. She lights match after match trying to start a fire in the fireplace, but nothing happens. Eventually she finds lighter fluid on a shelf and squirts a lot onto the wood in the fireplace and tosses in another match. This leads to an explosion of flame coming out of the windows of the cabin. Redford rushes in and finds her with her sleeve on fire. He helps her put it out. Cut to him starting a proper fire in the fireplace. She wanders around the cabin trying to get a signal to her phone, to no avail. He says he can sleep on the floor and she can take the bed. While he's out getting his sleeping bag, she changes into sleepwear and quickly jumps into the bed before he returns. When he gets back and gets undressed, oh boy, is he all fit. Kate notices. In the middle of the night, Redford hurriedly gets dressed and goes to an outhouse outside to use the bathroom. As he's in it, a person with a shotgun approaches the cabin. Suddenly, Redford hears Kate screaming. He races in and comes face to face with a man with a giant beard and a shotgun. He says it's his cabin and forces Redford to say what he thinks someone like Kate would be worth on the open market. He guesses not much. The man laughs and says he's right, and he tells Kate to get out of there. But he doesn't let Redford leave. So Kate's left. Redford's stuck with this guy. The man gets in Redford's face and says, "You have a pretty mouth." And yes, this is what it is. This is what we're dealing with. It's rape for comedy. Just then, Kate comes in and says something to hit him. Comes in with something to hit the man with, but the man hears her coming and turns around. But this gives Redford a chance to hit him with a log, knocking the man out. They hurry and drive away. Cut to them waking up in a makeshift tent the next morning out in the field. They chat about things. She asks why he lives all out there by himself. Like where she found his house. Again, we don't know how she found his house, but she asks why he lives there all by himself. He says it suits him and his demeanor. Then she says most guys like him who live on their own do that for one of two reasons: money and to be alone. She asks if he's an oil rigger, a miner, a mechanic. He says no to each one of these and asks her to stop talking, but then asks what the deal is with her. I guess he noticed her engagement ring and says I think that what's your deal? Like, why are you out and about like this? I noticed you have that ring, and I think that ring is probably worth $10,000. She says, I didn't buy it, so I don't know how much it costs. He says, well, I assume that mean that your guy is rich. And she says, maybe, but then she corrects him and say the ring is actually worth $15,000. I did not do justice in explaining that joke because it wasn't funny. She asks about the lady that he's on his way to see. She's assuming, I guess, he's on his way to see a lady. Anyway, she's right. Her name is Jody. She tries asking more about Jody, but it sort of fizzles out. More traveling scenes. But then she asks to stop. She needs to use the bathroom. Unfortunately, she's wearing a jumpsuit that he let her borrow, and she has trouble getting it off. Her trying to get it off seriously takes 30 seconds. But then Redford hears something and tackles her. There's a bear coming. Sure enough, a giant bear wanders by. It even roars at them. They lay flat and play dead. Eventually, the bear walks away. Afterward, Kate says that she doesn't have to pee anymore. Then the bear walks up to their snowmobile and tears it apart, trying to get out some food that was packaged on there. After taking in the damaged vehicle, Redford says they're going to have to walk on foot now. Cut to them walking. This movie, as I put in my notes, is so boring and dumb. Eventually, they arrive at a frozen-over lake. They have to walk across it. Halfway across, he says they need to turn back. He's worried that the ice is going to be too thin further ahead. She says, I'm not going to turn back, and she tells him that she's willing to try crossing if he is. They keep going. We stop in with her fiancé and his clown and the clown family, and I shall not be documenting it. Back to Kate and Redford as they walk. She annoys him with chatter, but then the ice cracks and they fall in. He helps get them out. He carries her off the ice, but then starts shaking. She remembers something he said about making fire from earlier in the movie and makes a fire for them. Through his heavy shivering, he says that she did well. Back to the clown show family, Kate's sister hits on her fiancé. He's so thrown off, he accidentally headbutts her and breaks her nose. She screams in rage and runs off. Back to Kate and Redford, he tells her that they need to get their clothes off so they can stay dry and so they can not get hypothermia or something like that. They stand back to back and get naked. Back over to the clown show. They're now in the ER because the sister does in fact have a broken nose. Back to Kate and Redford, he dives into the icy water naked to look for fish. Cut to nighttime as they sit around a campfire. They chat. I don't know if he ever found fish. Anyway, the chatting is very annoying. She finds out he reads poetry and is very condescending about him reading poetry. They end up chatting a lot about poetry. He says, look, if we stick together, we have a good shot of getting through this. The next morning, they wake up and smile at each other. It's snowing outside. He throws some snow on his ice and gets her to do the same as a way to wake yourself up and to wash your face. Then they end up throwing snow at each other, and it's very playful. We get a montage of walking as music plays. Eventually, they make it to a clearing, and he points to where they need to go. More and more and more walking. Cut to nighttime. They arrive at a power station of some sort. He wants to steal one of their vehicles, but she wants to talk to them instead. She goes inside to see who's working. She finds a refrigerator filled with food. She steals a lot of food. When she closes the door, a man stands before her. She races out and they steal one of those big shovel trucks. They drive it for a while, but then it conks out and it's out of fuel. And they're about an hour away from the nearest town. Cut to them arriving at a motel. They ask for 2 rooms, but wouldn't you know it, only 1 room is available. It's a special room, too. Cut to them being shown to the room. As soon as they enter, a disco ball starts spinning at some sort of couple's room. Kate is uncomfortable with the room, but he's exhausted and lays right down in the bed. She goes off to take a shower. He lays in bed and reads his poetry book. Then it's his turn for the shower. She pulls out her phone and calls her sister. When her sister answers, We see her sister is actually trying on Kate's wedding ring. When Kate explains the situation, her sister assumes Kate is just having one last fling with this mystery man, Redford. Kate assures her that's not the case and asks her to tell her mom to pick her up from the motel in the morning. Kate and her sister end the call. She never told her sister where she even was. With Redford still in the shower, she takes this time to dig through his poetry book. She finds an old photo of a lady and a kid. On the back is written, "We love you, we miss you." This means something to her, and she gets up and suddenly starts getting dressed. Redford comes out and realizes what she's done by going through her stuff. He's very mad. She says, "You know what? I almost threw away my life for you." Now she knows why he lives in the middle of nowhere. He says, "I live in the middle of nowhere to avoid women like you." And so let's pause here. So they're on this adventure together, and they're obviously growing to like each other. And so she goes through his stuff and sees a photo of a woman and a child saying, "We miss you, we love you." And she must assume that this is his wife and or girlfriend and his child. Right? Okay. So then she gets so mad, she decides to leave, which is what we're getting ready to cover. But then she also adds, "I know why you live all by yourself now." Why? To not live with his child? No, that doesn't make any sense. But let's move on. We see Kate leaving the motel in a taxi. Where is that at in my notes? Yeah, cut to a taxi picking her up and taking as Redford watches. Cut to Kate waking up back at home. Her fiancé is really happy to see her. She regales him with stuff from her adventure. He's very concerned because it sounds really dangerous, but she talks about these harrowing events as if they were really fun. He's glad she's home and safe, and then says nothing will ever happen to you again. And this makes Kate make a sad face because she's kind of like, I liked it when things happened to me. Later, she talks with her mom and comes clean about her second guessing her wedding because of Redford. Her mom is incredibly supportive and offers to even postpone the wedding. Kate promises it's okay. She still wants to get married. Eventually, her mom asks for Redford's name. Kate gives it to her, and her mom recognizes it as an author that she's read. Kate had no idea Redford was an author. Now it's wedding time. The family gets into the limo, but then Kate asks for a quick detour first. She finds a local address for someone with the same last name as Redford and goes there, and it turns out to be his mom, the woman in the photo. She says Redford has arrived, but he just stepped out. She also knows all about Kate and their adventure. Turns out it was his mom's birthday that he was getting back for. Kate says that she has to get going because of her wedding, but wants his mom to know that he saved her life and he's a good guy. Kate then asks who the little girl in the photo is. Redford's mom says it's a complicated story. Cut to Redford meeting with his daughter and daughter's mom. She was shocked to hear from him. He says he figured it was time. We find out they are separated and the breakup didn't go well. It seems this woman was tied up in a relationship when Redford and her got together and presumably had the kid. She says, "I can tell you're in love," and tells him to go get whoever he's in love with. Whatever. When cut to the wedding, Kate isn't comfortable but makes her way to the altar. As she stands there, she thinks about her times with Redford. We get flashbacks on screen to the events of the movie. Kate then says that she can't do this. She thinks Brad, her husband, her fiancé, is an amazing man, but she can't do it. She walks out of the wedding. Immediately, Kate's sister makes her move and hits on the fiancé. Cut to Kate racing out of the church when Bradford arrives on a snowmobile. She slaps him and says he ruined her wedding, but then she smiles and kisses him. They ride off on the snowmobile and everyone comes out to see. The end. I hated this movie. I did not enjoy this movie. The only thing that made this movie watchable was the fact that there would be long stretches of time where nothing would happen, and I could just not take notes for a while. That was great. That was the best part of this movie. I also realized upon rereading my notes that this movie isn't a Christmas movie. Sometimes you don't notice that it's not a Christmas movie because Christmas is not really a focal part of this. So it's not weird to watch a movie and not think about Christmas for a while. But in this case, it's not a Christmas movie at all. Well, I guess we're just going to have to chalk this one up to experience and say, Joe, you did your best. You meant to watch a Christmas movie. Unfortunately, you did not. That's a Frosty Affair. And I do not recommend, don't watch this. MVP, I guess Redford, because he wasn't a clown like so many other characters. Even Kate was clownish at times. And I sound like I'm a humorless jerk or something, but it's not the case. I don't like stupid characters. In this case, Kate would often act stupid. And I did not like that. Anyway, that's it for episode 51. Thank you for listening. Thanks for hanging out. And I will talk to you next time, friends. Goodbye.